Hi everyone. I'm putting together this module because this is a first year course, and because of that most of you are new to writing in the academy, and I recognize that that isn't something that you necessarily know much about, and why would you? The whole point of being in university is that you're supposed to be learning, so no one's expecting you to know how to do all this right off the bat. So I just wanted to give you a few tips, and of course you are always welcome to make an appointment with me to speak to me personally if you're struggling in some way or you just want to talk about your ideas. But I just wanted to give you this overview to give you some idea of what it is to write in the academy, because obviously there's all sorts of writing, but academic essays and papers are a specific kind of genre and form. So I wanna talk about what that looks like. But I also wanted to say that writing is in and of itself never about perfection. There's no such thing. And in fact, the whole point of writing in the academy is to develop your ideas and your thinking. And this is something that really comes home to me when I read comments on the CBC or in newspapers, that there seems to be a real lack of thought when people make those comments. And so what we're trying to do in the university is to help to develop critical thought. And that doesn't mean we're all going to agree. In fact, we won't. But the idea that through reading, through writing, through discussing, you're developing your own ideas and your critical thoughts, so that we're hoping that none of us are going to make these kind of thoughtless remarks that we see floating around on social media, for instance. Without further ado, I'm going to start with some of the hints that I have for you. I suspect that for a number of you, your high school teachers have already given you some idea that university is different than high school. Hopefully their warnings weren't too dire, but that is correct. And so what makes an academic paper? So one of the key things that makes a paper academic is that it's based on research and analysis. So it's not simply description. So you're not just simply recounting what somebody else said. That's an aspect of it, but you're also thinking about it, analyzing it, coming up with your own thoughts and ideas based on that information. So in the academy, that's one of the key things that we do regardless of the discipline, is we are researching and we're developing new ways of looking at things. And so for want of a better term, this is higher order thinking. It's not that you're simply accepting things as they are. So I often say to my students, if you're struggling with a paper, the best way to get at it in an academic way is to ask a question and answer it. And that will stop you from simply describing something. So for instance, I'll just give you an example. Somebody could write a very beautifully written paper on a topic, but if it's simply description, it's not going to, it'll be a B paper at the best, okay? So the other thing that marks it off as an academic paper is the use of peer-reviewed sources. And I'm going to repeat this because every year I get numerous papers that use Wikipedia. Wikipedia is not an academic source. It may lead you to books that are, but I really warn you about that. And this is an important sort of thing we're also learning, that we need to think critically about what we're reading. So I think you all know that anyone can print anything on the internet. That doesn't mean it's true or right, or as we've seen throughout the pandemic, this is a huge problem, that people don't know to critically engage with what they're reading. So in the academy, we're asking you to use peer-reviewed sources, and I know you don't necessarily know what that means, but these are sources from journals and books that have gone through a vetting process and by other scholars to make sure that they've been properly researched and that the information in it is correct and so on. So the easiest way to make sure that you're using peer-reviewed sources is to use the databases of the university library. So if you go through the ones that are particularly used in RLCT and the humanities, things like Muse and so on, they will all be peer-reviewed sources. So I really just suggest that's what you do, because if you just Google, you're going to come up with all sorts of things, and I will send it back to you. If that's what you've used, it won't be acceptable as an academic paper. And every year I send papers back to people and tell them they have to find academic research. So save yourself that trouble, and just I highly recommend, for now anyway, you just use the databases through Nipissing. Okay, what else? Attention to both style and structure, so grammar, paragraph breaks, spelling. So this is important in any kind of writing, obviously. So I did notice in the last assignment, there was a tendency to not use paragraph breaks and just have a long kind of pages and pages of writing. That's very difficult to read. So in an academic paper, you're generally making an argument of some kind, and so it needs to flow, and it needs to be easy for the reader to follow the flow of your argument. So paragraph breaks are very important. And so the rule of thumb is one main idea per paragraph. So I'm also suggesting that you use writing support services. They're there for you at Nipissing. They're all online right now, I believe, but nonetheless, they're there for you. And I really strongly recommend that you use them. You're paying a lot of money. Use the support and the services that are being offered to you. Everyone can improve their writing, and any academic will tell you that when we submit our work, we get critiqued by other writers. So that's just part of it. Also, there's nothing wrong with the sandwich, the idea of an introduction, body, conclusion. Actually, I find that often a very good way to organize. If you have numerous ideas, that's a way to keep it all structured and flowing. I'm going to discuss the writing of your proposal specifically in this section, although most of this holds true for any assignment. So the first step being, of course, to pick a topic, and I've given a list of essay topics in the information section on Blackboard. Now, as I've said, you can pick your own topic, but you need to run it by me before you go ahead so I can make sure that that's an academic topic. And that it's doable. And this is part of the trick. Sometimes, and this has happened to me, you have a good topic, but there's no research on it, so it becomes impossible to work on it. But it's always better if you pick a topic that you find interesting. So if you have something that you're interested in, I welcome you to run it by me, and then you can write on something that's not on the list. The next step is finding sources. So as I said, they must be peer-reviewed. So you need to find, for a paper of this length, ideally 3 to 4 sources, and read through them. So again, using the library search engines, you can also use supplementary sources such as newspapers, but the main sources have to be peer-reviewed journals or books. And then read through the sources, and I strongly recommend that you take notes. This is something I certainly do, and I think most academics do. As you read through, you make notes in a notebook, and then you can go back to them and start developing your arguments and ideas from there. Then you need to spend time thinking about your topic, and this is undervalued, but this is just part of the process of thinking through your ideas, wrestling with them, and this is true for any writer, whether it's fiction or academic writing. This is an important part of the process, or talking about it with somebody. Then write the synopsis using the MLA or APA style guide. So you do have to always reference your work in the essay using a style guide. If you don't reference your work, I will send it back to you. The referencing is a way for me to, if I need to, look at the source and check it. So you need to reference. Now this can be confusing for people, and I understand that. It takes a while to get the idea, but generally you're paraphrasing the research and then citing it, so with author, date, and page number. Now, if it's a very important point, you can use a quotation. I always say don't overuse quotations. Use them only when you're really trying to emphasize a key point. Otherwise, you paraphrase, write it over in your own words, and reference it, cite it using MLA or APA. If you have any questions about that, you can contact me or the writing support people. And then write the bibliography. So of course this is letting me know what your sources are. I can see the date, I can see the publisher, and so on. So if you have any questions about this, you can contact me. So as you can probably tell, the idea behind me having you write this proposal is to get you thinking about your essay ahead of time. I'm very well aware that you have a lot of classes and there's a tendency to leave it to the last minute, but it's very difficult to write a good university level paper at the last minute, if not impossible. So you need to start well ahead of time, getting your sources, thinking about your ideas, and so on. So that's part of the idea behind writing. So I'm going to move on to talking about the writing of the actual essay. So as I stated in the beginning, we're looking for critical thought, analysis. So this can be, I think, not obvious to people necessarily. So think of it as a rant-free zone. An essay isn't just about you expressing your opinion. Obviously, your opinion will be in there, usually at the conclusion, and it's in the argument. But it's not just simply an opinion. That's a great gig if you can get it, writing opinions in a newspaper. That does exist, but that's not what an academic paper is. It's a reasoned argument based on research. And of course, it will have your opinion within it, but it has to be backed up by research and well argued. Okay, so first step, look over the proposal and read the feedback carefully. Then I strongly recommend that you use an outline, and this will become more and more important as you write longer papers. It's very difficult to keep all those ideas in your head. I use outlines all the time. I mean, you can change it as you go and move things around, but it just gives you a way to begin to structure your ideas and get a flow going. Once you've written the first draft, you read it, proofread it. I read it over many times if you can. Ideally, and this is another reason why it's important to start well ahead of time, so you can put it aside for a few days and then come to it again and reread it. Now, if you're fortunate, it's really great to have somebody you know who's a good writer and who's sympathetic. You only want constructive criticism, obviously. So if you have somebody in your life and you can exchange work with them, that's really helpful, and have them read it over and comment. So it's very typical for all of us when we're writing, it seems clear to us, but when someone else reads it, certain points aren't clear, and that gives you the opportunity to clarify them and get helpful feedback. And of course, you can contact me if you have any questions as you go along, or you need to work through any of your ideas. So I just wanted to state here at the conclusion of the presentation that I hope that you'll also celebrate your accomplishment, go for coffee, go for a smoothie, go for a walk with a friend, because this is hard work, and I think it's not recognized sometimes that it's hard work. It's challenging, and it's an adventure, and it's rewarding. And so I really hope that you'll enjoy this process of working with ideas, developing your thinking, or writing them down and working with them. So it is important to recognize that this isn't something that you master, or as I said at the beginning, there's no perfection here. It's just consistently trying to develop and become better. And so you deserve to celebrate your accomplishment.